Hope everybody is having a good day on today's date. It is April the 8th, 2024. And of course, a lot of things are happening in the world, including the fact that I have definitely learned about not assuming stereotypes and all along those lines. And I think Brandon will enjoy this particular personal narrative that I'm going to tell and all along those lines. But I was actually attending the Full Frame Film Festival, which is one of the largest and the best documentary film festivals in the country. Some people compare it to Sundance and all along those lines. So I did that and saw a film from Australia that was about people that are neurodivergent. And I learned about an Australian performer that apparently I did not know about. John Farnham, I believe is his name, because there was a whole movie about these neurodivergent person that were out there, and they were in a specialized school and they were doing a musical based on that particular Australian superstar. It was actually a very touching documentary and all along those lines. And then I saw one about the union, because apparently there are unions on Amazon, and there was one called literally Union that was about that. And I actually reached out to Shaquille to see if he had been part of that, and he was not part of that, even though he's been involved in other movie endeavors. And I think he told me that most of his movie endeavors have been here in the United States and all along those lines. But Union was definitely talking about the efforts to unionize things in at Amazon, and there have definitely been a union that was won in Amazon and all along those lines. So I'll get to some of the news items, but the part that I was going to get, because we've got Brandon with us as well today, as well as Ken, because they're over there enjoying themselves in Bali and all in that space, was on the day that because I also went and saw the discussion of a film about Luther Vandross. Didn't see the film on Luther Vandross, but I heard the discussion with some of the people involved, and talked to some friends that went to see it. And it sounds like it's a wonderful movie that should be out in commercial release sometime in the near future and all along those lines. But on day one of the 2 days that I went, because I went 2 of the 4 days and everything, I actually stumbled across a bar. And this is where Brandon will enjoy this part of the conversation and all along those lines. And I saw a gentleman that had red hair and what I thought was a Scottish accent. I talked to him and learned that he was actually from France. So he was from France. So I was thinking that he was from Scotland, thinking now all of that, but he had moved here to Durham, North Carolina because of romantic interest and all along those lines. So he's trying to find a lady love and all in that spot. And apparently it didn't work out. So he's still here and still working at the bar that I ran across and all along those lines. So it was quite interesting talking to that gentleman and his cohort behind the bar as I was having a Cuban sandwich, some fries, and a drink and everything along those lines, who was very much involved in the space of being, I think, some ties or some relatives in Panama. So he was saying that Panamanian women are very beautiful and all along those lines. So I got a chance to talk to him and talk to his history as well, because he has some fascinating history in that space, and talk to some of the musicians, because literally what drew me there was hearing what sounded like a blues band, and it was a bluesish kind of band that was in that area. So we'll talk about a little bit of this when we bring Brandon on, but let me get to the important part, which is some news and all along those lines. So Trump has says that abortion legislation should be left to the states. That's right. He's saying that he's declining to back a nationwide abortion ban, saying it should be left to the individual states. So that is what he is going for in his campaign and all along those lines. And the Vatican is getting involved in conversations around sexual identity, because the Vatican says transgenderism, surrogacy, gender theory, and things along those lines violate human dignity. So the Vatican has blasted sex change surgery, surrogacy, and gender theory. So that is what they're doing over there in the Vatican, because they're saying that gender affirming surgery threatens the unique dignity of a person. At least that's what the Vatican is saying in that space and all along those lines. And by the way, I forgot to get to a sports item as well, because y'all know I do follow some sports. And apparently South Carolina is the winner. Sorry, Caitlin Clark did not win it this time around. So South Carolina took the title in the women's championship in the NCAA. And we'll see what happens in the men's side, as Connecticut and Purdue are playing this evening. the game yesterday for the women was in the afternoon, and I actually watched quite a bit of that game, and it was some very good basketball played by the ladies. And like I said, a lot of folks were rooting for Caitlin, but that was not to be the case. Dawn Staley decided that she was going to get revenge for the loss that she took last year. And even though Caitlin came out very hot and everything, she cooled off, and they did not win. Now, coming back to the news, devastation in Gaza as Israel wages war on Hamas, and definitely Gazans are returning to the indescribable destruction of Khan Yunis. So Khan Yunis, I believe is how it's pronounced, and they're saying that Khan Yunis smells like death as Palestinians return to their devastated home. And it looks like Israel might have killed one of the Hezbollah field commanders in a Lebanon strike. So that is something else that we're seeing as well. And Macron has acknowledged France's failures to heed the warnings of Illumin massacres in Rwanda. So definitely that is something going on because Rwanda is blaming the world's inaction as it commemorates the 1994 genocides. So it's hard to believe that that took place some 30 years ago and all along those lines. So definitely that is something that is going on in the world as well. And Elon Musk is threatened to out-top Brazil judge as an alleged traitor. So Brazil Supreme Court justice opens inquiry into Elon Musk, escalating a dispute over misinformation. So it looks like Brazil and Elon Musk might be going at each other as well. As a matter of fact, we're seeing a quote that says, "We have reached the limit. Clash with Elon Musk prompts calls for social media controls." So it looks like there might be some efforts to try to get some social media controls in that part of the world as well. And Russia and Ukraine, speaking of feuds, are feuding over the dangerous attack on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. So definitely Russia is saying that Ukraine tried to strike a nuclear power plant again with a drone. So that is something that is going on as well. And in Germany, German civil servants are demanding an immediate end to Israeli arms supplies. So that is something else, as apparently Nicaragua at the UN court is saying that Germany is not differentiating between self-defense and genocide. So definitely it looks like the UN is getting involved in that as well. So definitely, and of course we know President Biden had a pointed phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu. So definitely that is something that our people are talking about. And definitely if you're thinking about those whole notion of kind of interruptions of the internet, it happens in other countries as well, because apparently Iranian internet is experiencing disruption throughout that particular country and all along those lines. And Japan is doubling down on the U.S. alliance as China looms. So definitely it looks like the Japanese Prime Minister Kishida is coming to the U.S., and we'll see what happens in those conversations as China says it patrolled the South China Sea in an apparent response to U.S. naval drills with allies. And Japan's Kishida warns the world is at a historic turning point as he touts the U.S. alliance ahead of the Biden summit. So it definitely looks like a lot of things are going on in the world, including Israel, marking 6 months of war in Gaza as support wanes among the top U.S. officials. And Mexico to Iran, why are attacks on embassies so controversial? Because apparently there's a number of attacks on our embassies, and people are looking at that as well, as Ecuador faces outrage after storming the Mexican embassy to arrest a former VP. So Ecuador's president gambles the Mexico embassy raid will pay off at home. So yes, sometimes those Latin American countries don't necessarily get along either. So it'd be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. And New Zealand is clamping down on visas after an unsustainable migration level. So they're saying that their migration level is unsustainable, and they are clamping down on their visas, and they're tightening the workers' visas in that part of the world. And I know that Nick has been talking about this notion of us having migrants pay in this part of the world and all along those lines. It'll be interesting to see how this goes on. And in Chechnya, they have banned fast techno, rave music, and music that is too slow. So definitely that is something that's going on in another part of the world. So sometimes there might even be censorship that is taking place as well. Let me get to a couple of U.S. stories, and I'm going to bring in my reporters from Bali, because we've got two of them with us, and we've also got two folks that have been traveling the world. One of them that was on the East Coast, and I think they're back on the West Coast now, but we'll find out very shortly and all along those signs. But like I said, Trump is talking about how he wants to leave abortion to the states and all in that space. And Biden is racing to enact a new student loan forgiveness plan ahead of November. So he's announcing a new mass student loan forgiveness plan that could give relief plans for millions of borrowers. So it looks like he's trying to do that as well. And there are a number of people that will be paying attention to the solar eclipse. That is later on tonight. And there are certain parts of the state, certain parts of the United States that can see it. I don't know if they can see it in Bali. I know we don't see it here, but I did talk to somebody, I think it was driving either to Kentucky or Ohio, so they could actually see the totality of the eclipse, because I don't think there's any place except maybe the mountains that you can see here in North Carolina and all along those lines. But there are folks that are willing to travel to go see the eclipse and all along those spaces. But even George Abbott is getting into it because he's issuing a solar eclipse warning for Texas and all along those lines. And speaking of the eclipse, and this is where I'll bring in my panelists and all along those lines, I did see that one of those people that loves to talk about a number of things going on in the world, and I say I've got Kim and definitely Brandon with me and everything. But everybody knows who Marjorie Taylor Greene is and all along those lines. And apparently she was trying to blame the eclipse and saying that we need to pay attention to the eclipse because it might be the signs of the end time, that and the earthquakes that were taking place in Maine. So sometimes Marjorie says some things that you get your head, scratching your head and wondering what is Marjorie Taylor Greene thinking, because she was saying that this might be a sign of the end times, the fact that there was an eclipse. And I think, Brandon, I could be wrong, but I think that they've been eclipses for decades and millennials and all along those lines. But Marjorie thinks maybe that it's something new and that we should be concerned about it, along with the fact that there have been some earthquakes happening in Maine, and I want to say some other parts of the Northeast as well. So how are you doing as you're getting ready to celebrate that big milestone birthday and all along those lines? But how are you doing? And like I said, I was having some fun this weekend, went to that film festival and ran across a brother from France. Well, actually, it's a white gentleman from France, but I'm going like, I could have, because I heard a brogue and an accent. So I was thinking he's from England, or Scotland. But he's like, no, I'm from France, and it was a part of France that's over there near Normandy, or that part of the area. So it's the northern part of France is where he was from and everything. But how are you doing?
I'm good. Well, I'm excited to be rejoining you guys after a few years of being absent and be able to make some fresh travel content. I'm excited to announce our new YouTube series, my new exclusive to YouTube series. It's coming out later this summer that we're filming now. Kim's here with me. We're filming a series about travel in Bali, about places to go, things to do, trying to encourage people to look outside of some of the usual places they might travel, although Bali is a very popular tourist destination, and show them the how-tos, what to do, what to look for, places to go, kind of share our experience traveling here. And I'm looking forward to it. It should be a great series. It'll be out later this summer at youtube.com/Brandon Scott Stewart. And it should be a great new adventure. We've done a lot of things on that YouTube channel. Recently been camping in Norway in the wilderness. We've been tasting wine in Argentina, having food all across South America, getting stranded in Bolivia, and sharing them all there. So I hope everybody tunes in this summer and checks out the YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, so when the Bali series drops, you'll be able to watch it along with the rest of the world.
So speaking of that, looking forward to that. Looking forward to that series. And by the way, you may not be the youngest one. I see we've got Kim with us as well, but we've got some other young folks that have been participating in our conversation. And if I remember correctly, at least one or two of them might be under the age of 30, but they can correct me in that space and all along those lines. But we've got both Isaiah and Christina that have been doing a lot of work. They went to check out Sarah Week under the direction of Kim and all along those lines. But they are definitely as part of that young set that we love having this young voice, because definitely me and others are in the 60 plus category and everything. But you mentioned Latin America, and if I remember correctly, both Christina and Isaiah have some deep roots to Latin America and all in that space. So how are you folks doing? And definitely we're going to bring in some of the other folks. But as you can see, Brandon's an old-time veteran. He's about to hit the big three, so he might be going over the hill and all along those lines shortly and everything along that space. But he has definitely been with the network, I want to say, since it's a founding and all in that space, or at least in the early parts. But you folks are new to the network or newer to the network. So if you'll just share a little bit with Brandon about yourselves and what y'all are up to, because I know y'all are in the energy space and a number of other spaces as well.
Hi, Brandon, and hi, everyone. Thank you, Mark. Good morning. So, yes, like Mark was saying, me and Isaiah are both from Colombia, and I just got back from the East Coast 2 days ago. We had an earthquake on Friday, which is crazy because on Thursday, I remember coming on the call and saying how the weather patterns there have been so erratic. There's a lot of coastal flooding, a lot of rain over the week, and for all of the time I lived there, I mean, I've been in Vegas now for about 10 years. But before that, I had never experienced an earthquake in New Jersey. So I believe the magnitude was about 4.8, which is kind of scary. I didn't experience any damage. We felt the shake and like the tremble and everything. A couple things knocked over in the house, but just in general, the weather here has been insane. But I'll actually be in Bali in June, and I'm hoping Isaiah will join me. But we're going to be in Bali, maybe Singapore, and Japan.
Sounds wonderful and everything. And I am correct in thinking at least one or both of you are in that same 30-20 age frame, if I'm remembering correctly. But y'all can let folks know, because I know Brandon's about ready to hit his milestone birthday of the 30 in the very short time frame and everything.
Well, happy early birthday. I'm 31.
So she's just a little bit above that. And Isaiah is a little bit younger, if I remember correctly, and everything.
Yeah, correct. I'm just 4 years younger.
27. So you're around 26 or 27?
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Share a little bit about what you got going on before I bring on our regular panelists, including Rick Rosner and definitely Sasha as well. But definitely share a little bit about what you got going on, Isaiah, these particular days, because I know both you and Christina are involved with a number of business ventures.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, today I'm going to go talk to some municipalities around Tennessee and up above Western North Carolina to decontaminate their waters, either watersheds or for drinking water, to make, at the same process through electrolysis, what you're doing is splitting hydrogen and oxygen, and you're able to collect that hydrogen, but you're cleaning the water as well. So you're able to create a green fuel, as well as decontaminating water for industries such as food processing plants or pharmaceutical plants that all dump their waste into rivers and such as that. So that's what I'll be doing today. And then I know in Bali, they're going to be hosting, the UN is going to host a water conference on May 22nd or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So that'll be taking place in Bali. Sounds amazing and everything. Is everybody, because I know a lot of people are paying attention today, because today is the day of the totality of the solar eclipse. Like I said, it's not taking place here in North Carolina in the sense of being able to see it. I'm not sure whether it'll be in Sasha's part of Canada or whether you'll get to see it in Bali and everything. But as they're going, what are folks doing for the eclipse? Because like I said, apparently Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she says some very unique things, is thinking that this is the sign of the end times, that and those earthquakes that are taking place in unusual places like Maine and New England and a number of other places. But what is folks' plans for the eclipse? Rick, you got any big plans in the West Coast?
In LA, we get about 50% of totality. I would guess that North Carolina gets even closer to totality. It starts, the moon starts taking a bite out of the sun in about 3 hours, and then I think it reaches totality in the places where it's gonna, I think about 90 minutes later. So we have our glasses ready, so we're gonna go stand in the front yard. Marjorie Taylor Greene she owns a gym, and she just released, along with her ridiculous pronouncement about the eclipse, she released a tape of her of working out. She can't even do a pull-up right. So how can we trust her on eclipses? That's her field, is being able to exercise, and she doesn't even exercise right. And Trump, you cannot trust what Trump says about abortion. He's just saying that so he might fool some, slightly less slightly more liberal people into voting for him, but he said in the past that women should be punished for getting abortions. And, he's, as president, he made more than 30,000 public misstatements and lies. So he's not a reliable, reporter on himself. He's likely, if he gets reelected, to push for a national ban at 6 weeks, the way Florida has done.
Yeah. Sasha, what's your take on that? Because, like I said, I just saw that where the apparently he is getting involved in saying that it should be a state issue, the issue of abortion, and all along those lines. But as Rick said, maybe that is lip service as he is doing the campaign trail. But what is your take on Donald Trump and this notion of saying that the states should be the ones in control of the abortion conversation?
Well, Trump was always against abortions. The reason is that to sell his worthless stock in his media company and do other frauds as he did all his life, for that he needs suckers born every minute. So there will be less abortions, more suckers will be born, and more suckers will buy his stock, his shoes, his wine, his steaks, his university, his hotels and casinos, and all other things. So what he says today about that he would leave it up to states, this is absolute lie, 100%, and I don't think that it deserves even to be discussed.
Speaking of things that need to be discussed or not really discussed, because we talked about it on this show before, and I'd love to hear Brandon's take on this particular issue, but how much should we have institutions be making the decisions around orientation and around a number of other things? Because you heard me mention the Vatican has come out against transgenderism and gender theory and a number of other things, and apparently they just came out with this earlier today. So just wanted your take on the Vatican trying to get involved in what some people think are bedroom issues that should be staying in the bedrooms of individuals and not having politicians or others get involved. But Brandon, any thoughts around that? And I want to hear from Rick as well, and even the young folks, the other young folks as well.
Sure. I mean, I think it just shows a great point that education really is the silver bullet, and having people be able to learn and experience new things and meet new people and have new relationships and engage with different kinds of people, not just at home but abroad, is a really important aspect of having a successful adult life. And if you're in a place where you're unable to respect different cultures, different orientations, different religions, different beliefs, that it's a really sad sign that the world's getting not quite as small as it should be. And I encourage people, I mean, the Vatican must travel a lot, but not outside of its bubble. But I encourage people when they travel, to get outside of their comfort zone, get outside of their out of their bubble, try new things, meet new people, and be open to those new experiences, because being able to be educated and be empathetic really will, we wouldn't be talking about those issues if everyone were a little bit kinder and smarter and stronger.
Yeah.
Rick, the good news out of the Vatican is that the Pope said that people should be treated with kindness regardless of orientation. So that's the good part of what the Catholic Church has been around for 1,800 years, and they've changed with the times. They persecuted Galileo for saying that the sun was at the center of the solar system, and it took them a couple hundred years to change their minds, but they will slowly change. And they've made small, they don't change as fast as we want, but they will eventually come around.
Just out of curiosity, I don't know the answer to this, but I was just curious, Christina and Isaiah, how are other cultures, particularly the Latin American cultures, handling this differences around race and identity and a number of other things as well? Because like you said, you mentioned that y'all have Colombian roots and all in that space, and I don't know how other countries are handling this. I sometimes hear of countries that are even more repressive, including some of the African countries and all along those lines. But I was just wondering your take as world travelers, but also people that are from Latin America, as to how other people are doing compared to the United States and Canada.
Well, me personally, I mean, I don't want to speak on an entire country or Latin American beliefs, but I know that I was raised Catholic, so I have my own particular beliefs about transgenderism and, that there are only two genders in my mind from what I was taught. But I do agree with Brandon that it's good to keep an open mind and respect everybody, and not judge. I mean, who am I to judge? So I'm accepting to the people I meet and what they believe, but I also was taught to have my own beliefs, and I am religious. So, and I was taught about Adam and Eve, but that's just me. I don't know if Isaiah has a different take.
That's it.
I mean, I just believe at the end of it all that you have to accept everybody's beliefs. Everybody has their own process of consciousness and being able to evolve and being able to grasp different concepts. And you just have to be patient with all different types of cultures and people. I mean, you have indigenous tribes that live completely different than us, but sometimes you can't go into your territory because they won't allow it, and you just have to respect those boundaries. You have to respect those beliefs and not impose, but just keep living your life as best as you can without harming anybody else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Brandon, along the same kind of lines, because you've been a world traveler for years and everything, I was just wondering your take on world travel and respecting other people's beliefs. I know that sometimes even in the Muslim nations, they want people to be more covered than they are sometimes used to, and all along those lines. And you have definitely worked with a major institution. I won't say the name of the institution because you didn't tell me to say it and everything, but you worked with a major entertainment institution that has carried you around the world to those travel spots and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take on the need to respect the rights and the beliefs of countries when you go into these various places. Because I think, well, right now you're in Bali, but that's on vacation. But I know that you were recently in Europe. You've been recently in some of the Asian countries and all along those lines. But how important is it for you to respect the belief systems of those countries when you go there?
Well, I appreciate you not dropping the big word on me there, because otherwise, I just read a prepared statement and go into PR mode. But no, it's super important. I mean, everywhere you go, you have to be very mindful of not just the people around you and their comfort level, but the cultures, the norms of where you're at. So when you're in the Middle East, being aware of how you behave, how you dress, is super important. You want to respect their culture, respect their belief system, and be empathetic and loving towards what they expect of travelers or tourists. And it's the same anywhere you go. I mean, Western countries, certainly for Americans, are a lot more comfortable to travel to because they're very similar to the way we operate in a lot of American territories. But Latin America is another great example. Being very aware of where you're at and the cultures and norms of the area, politely engaging with them and trying not to feed into over tourism and feed into really changing and gentrifying an area, and trying to find the line of being respectful, engaging with the tourist activities to keep that tourism economy alive, but also respecting the norms, respecting the institutions, and dressing the way you need to dress to be able to participate with that culture and engage with those people, whatever religion, whatever background they might be from, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Asia, whether it's anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You want to respect the rights and everything else. One thing that sometimes surprises me, and I don't know other people, I definitely want to hear from Kim as well, since she's also coming in from Bali as that way, and hear what she's learning about Bali and the Bali system and everything. But I'm sometimes fascinated, and sometimes when I learned sometimes from other cultures and even other movies, because you heard me say that I was at the Full Frame Festival, did not attend it as much as I have in the past in terms of the amount of films that I saw. I think I only saw like about 3 or 4 this year, but there have been years that I've seen a multitude of them and all along those lines. But I learned about an artist that apparently has been around forever and a day. But even though I was not that familiar with his music, I wasn't that aware of him. So if y'all probably, and some of you young folks maybe know who the heck John Farnham is, but I'm sitting there going like, I have no clue who this guy is, but apparently he's very big in Australia and is kind of the Olivia Newton-John of the male kind of gender and all in that space, but apparently he was very well known and performed for a multitude of generations, because I think the young folks that were doing this particular neurodivergent film that was, well, neurodivergent play that they made a film about, were playing him in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So, and they were doing it in the year 2023. So that'll tell you, and I looked him up, that he's been out there for a multitude of decades and all along those lines. But he was new to me. So maybe you knew who he was already, Brandon, since I know you're in the music lane, or even Sasha, but it was a brand new artist to me hearing about this Australian film, because the film was from Australia, but apparently he's been in the music game for decades. But it was news to me. So, Brandon, are you familiar with the sounds of John Farnham?
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep my tastes open. I don't know that I would say I don't know if I should say I'm not a huge fan, but I definitely am familiar.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about you, Sasha? I know you're in the music lane because, like I said, that was news to me, and I was not that familiar with him. And then I want to hear from Rick as well because I did see Rick's hands going up.
Mark, sorry, not familiar at all.
Fair enough and everything. Rick, what were you getting ready to ask? Rick?
I looked up North Carolina to see what kind of eclipse show you're going to get, and it's pretty good all over your state. At the southeastern tip, the least you're going to get is 70% totality, and along your western border, you're going to get like 87% totality, which is, that's most of an eclipse. So,
Rick,
get your
Toronto
glasses
and
ready.
Montreal, it's almost 100%. Toronto and Montreal.
Montreal will get almost 100% everything. Hey, Chitovi, are you going to be going to a eclipse party somewhere in North Carolina? Since apparently we're getting this massive totality, or maybe they're going to do something for the Canes might even be playing today, and they closed out their season and are now waiting for the playoffs. But maybe the Bulls or somebody else are going to do an eclipse party. Are you got an eclipse party planned?
Nobody I know of is doing an eclipse party. We're only getting 75% in North Carolina at a maximum.
But that's still plenty. It gets dark. The birds start tweeting their night songs.
Yep.
It's pretty fun.
Schools
I flunked
will
an
do
exam.
something.
My first exam in college, there was a partial eclipse and it started getting dark and I fell asleep and didn't finish the test.
You said the schools might be doing something, Chitovi?
Well, since it's supposed to happen closer towards the exit of schools, I mean, schools may do something. Outside of that, yeah, I don't think really many people are. Well, other than, your regular sky gazers and stuff like that are going to look up. But a lot of people are going to keep on going with their day. I'll probably try and do the pinhole on a piece of paper because I don't have the glasses. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the budget way to, if you don't have glasses, then you take a piece of paper, piece of cardboard, take a push pin, put a hole in it, and hold it up, and you got to look at the shadow cast by the hole, which means you're facing away from the sun because you're not Donald Trump. You don't look directly at the sun.
Yeah.
You just look at the shape of the shadow, and you'll see a little crescent dealy.
Yep. And the interesting thing in the area where there's the total eclipse happens, because of the solar flares that happen off the side, you should be able to get a better view of those solar flares, and that's supposed to be one of the cool things about what's going on in the area of totality. But also, a fun part, is laughing at the conspiracy theorists that have come up with this is supposedly some giant human sacrifice.
Well, yeah, because I mentioned one of those earlier. Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying it's the sign of the end times.
That's dumb. Yeah, she crazy. But the other cool part, also for those who have gotten hooked on Three Body Problem on Netflix and thinking about the actual theory of Three Body Problem, it's kind of cool to think about the gravitational pulls and all the other chaotic stuff that comes from it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Lunatics are hoping that people will be raptured during the eclipse. And I got to say that I support that for certain people. I'd be okay with some
people
rapturing.
come up with jokes that they were going to throw random clothes out on the side and hide, after.
And I know that Christina earlier, and I guess and Isaiah as well, are religious and everything, but I've always wondered about that because it seems to me, because we talk about a God of mercy and all along those lines, even though there are different theories about whether it's a God of mercy or a God of vengeance and all along those lines. But I'm sitting there because with the way that cars move and everything, if a rapture was to take place, how are you going to stop the cars from running into each other? And wouldn't there be some unexpected fatalities in that space? That's one of the things that I've always.
The believers are safe because they're floating up into the sky. But there's the whole Left Behind series of books and movies, and you can see how it might go. yeah, if you don't want to have a Christian pilot and co-pilot on your jet during the eclipse, because they might, just disappear.
And then who knows what happens to the rest of the plane if they've gone and all in that space.
Yeah,
So
you need somebody who's godless who knows how to fly a 737.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've always been curious about in that sense and everything. Brandon, I know that you're over there in Bali, and I was hoping Kim would pop back in at some point as well. But I know one thing she talked about was the nature of how it is a very peaceful, and I know it's a different religion. It's more of an Eastern religion, but it seems like it's a very peaceful place, and a lot of Hindu temples there is what she was talking about, and a lot of other things that make it a very calming place. And in her mind, she was saying before we started the show that it was even more holy than some of the holy lands that exist and everything. But I just wanted your take on the whole notion of Bali and the Hindu culture, because it is a very Hindu culture, and I've never been there before, and I'm sure there are other religions that are there as well. But I just wanted your take on the nature of Bali and how Bali is as a country.
Sure. Well, I think it's first important to note that Bali is within Indonesia, and they are primarily Balinese Hinduists. Is one of the dominant religions here. So there are definitely a lot of temples. I suppose any land's holy, depending on who you ask. Pretty much everywhere you go, there's a lot of, ceremonies and things that they go through when they're building a new house to build a temple, to have a place to be able to purify their area. And it really, you can't go 10 feet without seeing an offering on the street. Or a temple nearby. And they're very open to talking about it. They're very open to share about it. They very much believe in being at peace with one another, that they're all kind of one together very collectively. So the idea of, if I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. So I might as well be kind, and very at peace with nature and how they interact with nature. Some of the Balinese Hinduists have ceremonies they do before they can cut a tree. And so you'll hear stories when you're here, like that's why Ubud is so green and luscious, because it takes a long time to do the ceremony to then go trim the tree. So they just will let it grow and let it be green in a beautiful jungle, even when the tourists are in the area. And it's really beautiful to be here. I mean, the nature is incredible. You really can get some stunning views. I would say probably top 3 sunsets I've had anywhere in the world. I would put top 3 here in Bali. So it is a great place to travel. I hope you guys all check out the series later this summer. We're obviously making it now, and I think it's going to be a good one. A little bit different than anything I've ever done. So we'll see how it turns out. We'll see if it gets an audience. But it is very interesting to interact with the different style of religion here.
Sounds like it and everything. Nick, you joined us and everything. I know you've been talking about leaving the country. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, by the way, I already checked out New Zealand. My wife actually graduated from high school in Whangarei, New Zealand, so she used to live there. But to give you an idea of the difference between New Zealand getting a golden visa and Spain is like $1 million, $2 million, and you get a golden visa, or you can do a digital nomad and get in. New Zealand right now, 15 million. You got to put on the table if you want to go to New Zealand. The United States of America, we're idiots. It's 0. Just come on in and talk about it. So the big morons are the USA. They need to start charging people to come in. You just don't walk into a country for free and use all their resources for free and then leave when you want to for free. And so until both parties get their act together and realize the United States is 34 trillion in debt and going further in debt, and both candidates are horrible, that we're going to continue this pace until we turn into the next Argentina or Ecuador or Venezuela, where hyperinflation just goes off the roof. That's what's going to happen, by the way. Mark my words. This will be an Argentinian economy where you go to McDonald's, it's $250 for a hamburger. Why is that? Well, it's because we squandered a bunch of money in the 2000s on ridiculous lefty lunatic ideas, from building centers, pride centers in New York we don't need, to Palo Alto, what they call it, museums for $3 billion that we don't need. We're just burning money like we're a bunch of morons, and we're all going to pay for it. It's just a matter of time. I'll be in Spain. I'll be in Europe.
You want to clarify something about
Canada,
the golden.
What? You ain't
want to
going
clarify
there.
something?
Look at
about
Brandon.
golden
He's in
visa?
Bali. He's in Bali.
I have to
Christina's
say I've
got
missed
her
you
exit
guys.
visa
This
to
is great.
Colombia. You know, come on, man. Half the people here are leaving the country.
Nick, you must
The only two people that are going to be here will be Jatovi and Rick, and they're going to take the brunt of it when they go out and get a McDonald's hamburger for $250. And the biggest thing we talk about, the solar eclipse. I saw them when I was a kid. They go on all over the world all the time, like no bloody kidding. It's not a big deal. Okay. So as the United States goes further in debt, as we let Ukraine just get obliterated by the Russians, what are we going to do? Look at the bloody sun as a cloud goes over it. What a waste of time. By the way, it's the biggest
Just a quick-
disappointment if you're an astronomer.
Quick thing,
It
Nick.
is a big disappointment.
Nick,
You want to see something
one-
good? Go see the Milky Way. Oh, wait,
Nick.
you can only see it in Kansas because we have too much ambient light.
Hey, Nick.
Oh, what a waste.
Nick.
Yeah, go
Nick.
on.
Nick,
Yeah.
is inflation a global thing?
Yeah, because the United
Thank you.
States
We're
starts
done.
it.
We're
We're
done.
25%
We're done with
of
your
the
argument.
GDP.
We're done with your argument
Hey,
because you
Jacoby,
just said that
I
inflation.
know this is going to be
only
a
in the
shock
U.S.
to you.
Listen to
We're
inflation is a
25%
global
of
thing,
the
so
world's
that makes your
GDP.
argument moot. Then
No,
on
no,
top
it
of
doesn't,
that,
Jatovi.
the
Listen,
reason
God
why
gave
they're
you
looking at
God
the
gives
sun-
you 2
the
ears
reason
and
why
one
they're
mouth.
looking at the sun
Jatovi,
and it's a
2
it's a
ears,
thing
one mouth, so you do
where
twice as
again-
much lip.
Yeah, I know. That's why
Jatovi,
you're
you have
trying to
3
overtalk me.
mouths.
So if you
You have
want to
3
listen
mouths.
to a
Go
little
on.
bit about
Let's roll
science,
them out.
a little bit about
Hold on
science,
1 second between
a little bit about
Nick and
science.
Jacoby.
Just a quick thing about science in terms of just going outside to look at the bloody sun because the eclipse is happening all the time. Why do they say that this is going to be it's going to be 20 years before this happens again? If it happens all the time, that means it's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen. So again, you were wrong there.
You know,
as well.
you don't listen very
Again,
carefully.
On
It
top of the
happens
reason,
all the time.
on top of the reason,
Somewhere
on top of
in
the reason,
the
hold on, Nick.
world,
Hold on,
Jatovi.
Nick. The reason
You
they
don't listen
want
very
to do
carefully.
the science behind it, the reason they
Somewhere
want
in
to
the
do the
world.
science
Okay,
behind
oh,
it is
right.
because there are a lot of things that the sun controls based on not only the amount of radiation that it puts out. So with the total eclipse, it kind of blocks all of that radiation out. Therefore, they want to do a lot of science experiments that deal with not only the ozone layer, but also the layer that actually protects all of the things that stop the gases from escaping. So therefore, we won't end up like a Mars, won't end up like a Mercury, and all these other areas. So they're doing a lot of science experiments, which is a big thing. So something that happens 20 years, the next time it's going to happen 20 years from now. It's a very important deal, science-wise. I know you don't like science. I get it.
Hey, Sasha, you had something you want to add, and then I had a question. And
A
Rick,
couple of things. Nick, number one, when you're talking about Argentina, number one, what you have to admit, that they have by far the best soccer team in the world. And Messi, the best player in the world, is Argentinian. So it doesn't matter the economy or eclipse of the sun or so on. This is far the most important thing. Now, about eclipse, I don't understand. Unless you're in the business of selling sunglasses, what are you so much worried about the eclipse? Actually, the best eclipse will be here in Toronto and Montreal areas. And it will be about 100%, or probably it's 100%, period. And so I will have an opportunity. I'm not going to follow that, but we'll see how it looks. Why not?
hey, Rick, you had something.
I had to rate my
Here's
note
some
to
eclipse
Jatovi because I
trivia.
can't
100 years. Hold on. Let me say some. 100 years ago, it took an eclipse to confirm Einstein's general theory of relativity, which was based on seeing how much the gravitational field of the sun bent the light from the stars that were close to the sun. Without an eclipse, you couldn't see those stars. So they needed an eclipse to confirm that Einstein was right in modifying Newtonian gravity. Now, about the golden visas, I want to clarify something.
Yeah.
Nick talks about how, it takes $1 million if you want to go to Spain.
You
15
do a
million
digital
if you want to go to
nomad. A digital nomad's much better.
Right, but you don't have to. To clarify, you don't pay the governments $1 million.
That's right.
It's just
Right.
money of your own that you get
Yep.
to keep. But you have to invest it in
Right.
like a Spanish bank or Spanish real estate. So it doesn't cost you $1 million. It just means you have take your assets and move them over there.
That is correct. Or you buy a house. Wait, Brandon's in Buck Valley. Let's listen to him. He's already left the United States. He's already got his golden visa, baby.
I've been back in the States in about a year. I do think it's very funny because these are conversations that we have a lot as a travel YouTuber. When we talk about visas and we talk about digital nomads as a big thing now, remote workers obviously is a big thing where people are able to go and work anywhere in the world a lot more easy than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. An interesting parallel, I think, is if you remember, not that long ago, there were some cities in Italy and a couple other countries jumped on board where they were giving houses away for €1. And you could have a house in a beautiful coastal town in Italy for €1. And everyone said, you had a similar discourse where, well, wait a second, shouldn't we do that in Detroit? Shouldn't we do that? And it was the same argument. And like you had mentioned earlier, that it wasn't about the house for €1. It wasn't about the visa and how much money you had. It was about investing into the community, revitalizing the community. And I think that's important. I think that travel should be more accessible for people. And I think it should be more easily accessible and more affordable for sure. But I think it's also important that we do invest in the communities we're traveling into so that we don't end up, becoming overcrowded and running out the locals and being over tourists.
They won't let you run you out. In Portugal, they increased the amount of money you had to put in, and New Zealand did the same thing. What they do is they see the visa working. They bring in a lot of economic activity, and then they raise the amount. Now, here's what they do in the United States. Nothing. Come on in. Bring us. You're poor, you're hungry, you're starved, you're morons. And that's a totally wrong policy. We need to slap them with $10,000 minimum, $100,000 for a golden visa, maybe $1 million, and then round them all up.
Hey,
If they don't pay the 10 grand, send them back home, baby.
Nick, hold on a second. Nick, hold on a second. You told me several times.
He's going to change the policy in the United States of America.
Nick, hold on a second.
So get ready for having a real immigration policy when Donald Trump gets elected. That's the reason Joe Biden's gone, by the way.
Yeah, Nick, hold on a second. I've got a question. I've got a question for Brandon based on something you said several times, because he is part of a group who won't say, well, I'm probably going to imply the group by the question and everything, but you have said several times that you do not think that a Pride Center in New York is needed, and you've also or needs to be supported by the federal government or by government grants and everything.
No, they can do their own bloody center.
You've also said that the Hayti Center doesn't need to get some federal money as well. So I want to hear from Brandon, how important is it to have Pride Centers, and should there be some government funding or some funding?
No, we're talking federal government that's broke funding.
I want to hear from
State
Brandon.
of New York wants to pay it. I don't care. If City of New York wants to pay it, I don't care. The federal government is broke. They should not be paying for junk like this because they are bloody broke. They shouldn't be paying for the Palo Alto Museum. They shouldn't be paying for the transgender rights in Ohio. It's just a part of a woke agenda, which is one reason.
What does woke mean?
Because people are.
What does woke mean?
They don't want the federal government who's broke. Now, the city or the state.
What does woke mean?
No problem. I don't give a rat's rear. Let New York State pay it. Look, if California wants to pay it, they're crazy down there. Let them pay for whatever they want. But the people in Kansas and Ames, Iowa, do not want to pay for a Pride Center in New York or a Palo Alto Museum in Palo Alto History Museum.
Well, let's hear from Brandon. Brandon represents part of this group that we're attacking. And
well, he's not God's representative for the gay community. Mark,
Brandon,
is,
let's hear from Brandon.
If we re-elect Trump, hold on. Trump gave billionaires a $2.7 trillion tax cut, which we got nothing for. We got a revenue shortfall. We didn't even get any LGBTQ centers. We just got a revenue shortfall. So electing Trump, and he's saying he wants to do it again, another tax cut for billionaires. Any tax that regular people got expire next year under Trump. So I'd rather
because Trump will defend the rich and the entitled. Okay, we already know that.
Brandon, your take on this whole argument and everything, like I said, glad you were able to help us out.
Go Donald.
Brandon?
I think that's hysterical. I definitely missed you guys. It's been a few years of missing the hot potato being thrown around the room. I like that it's more respectful. Everybody's raising their hands and not just shouting at each other as much as when Shaq was on the show back when I was doing the show.
Shaq's not here.
I do think it's a great question. I mean, it's the tale as old as time, right? You talk about it with any subject matter across any time in American history, you're going to have the same debate. You know, one side's going to say, why are we spending $300 on ashtrays on submarines? It's wasteful spending. And the answer is because they need to shatter nicely so that you don't have glass everywhere. Then they shoot back, well, why are we funding the NEA for arts and funding education and humanities? And the answer is the exact same thing. We need to have a society that's held together and doesn't shatter into a million pieces without any arts and any entertainment. So, you know, it kind of tells all this time. As far as the new hot topic of identity, I think it's important that we celebrate everybody's identity, regardless of how they identify. I think we, particularly in the States, are behind the curve a little bit in just the respect part. I don't think we've mastered that yet. So I think we're a little premature in conversations about how corporate or federal or state funding should go into these things until we can kind of level out the respect field across the board, let people identify how they need to identify and respect that, not just as a society, but as a legal structure as well. And then we can start having more advanced conversations about what to do and how to show that respect and how to show that tolerance.
Yeah, that makes
Well,
sense.
you know, another problem that is Carnegie Hall. I'm a member of Carnegie Hall. When I was there, I found the U.S. government gave them $1 million. Look, New Yorkers don't need $1 million to fund Carnegie Hall. That was purely wrong. The federal government is broke. They don't need to put $1 million in Carnegie Hall. And I totally am against, even though I like classical music, it has nothing to do with what I like or hate. It has to do with the broke federal government going on a woke agenda. This is wrong, because the thing is, if the city of New York, the state of New York wants to fund Carnegie Hall, good for them, but not the federal government. The federal government needs to get their hands.
Where's the city and the state going to get the funds from?
Everywhere. Pardon? Get it from the state or the city.
The state going to get the funds from?
They get it from you because they tax you.
No, they also get it from the federal government.
More money. I keep donating to the state of North Carolina all the time. It's like they're continually have their hands out and continually give them money. So I'm sure they can send some to the Haiti Center. I don't give a rat's rear. But the federal government's broke. They need to stop this.
2 quick questions for you. You keep using the word woke, which it would be nice for you to define what the word means. And then the second question is, because you keep saying you're against spending here, you're against spending there, you're against spending there, what are you for?
I'm for a balanced budget. All Joe Biden had to do.
Don't give me the generic. Don't give me the generic. Don't give me the generic. I would like to hear for what things are you okay with the government spending money on?
Balanced budget.
And balanced budget is generic.
And then I don't give a rat's rear what you spend the money on. Hey, Jatovi, look, if you could balance the budget, and they gave $14 billion to the center in North Carolina, the Pride Center, I could care less. Okay, but when you have a budget that's 1.7 trillion in debt, and they're adding more debt than I do care, and you're going to hear from me, you're going to hear from a lot of people that are the I don't know what we call us, the centrist, who don't like seeing the way the economy is going. And unfortunately, Trump, you're right, is not the solution because he's the king of debt. So you got 2 horrible candidates, and I don't know what I'm going to do when it comes to November 6th. I think I'm going to leave the country. Oh, wait, I'll go
Rick,
Brandon.
Rick.
It sounds like you.
Nick does not want to be here.
/ Scott Stewart and see where you want to go in the world. I think I've got the perfect YouTube channel for you.
I wanted to respond to Brandon. Brandon talked about how the U.S. is kind of behind much of the rest of the world in terms of accepting gender identity. There's one area in which we lead the rest of the world, and that is in the area of drag that conforms to genetic gender identity. The U.S. is cool. You can go as far as you want. I'm in male drag. When I was a teenager and for years out, for the rest of my life, I decided I needed to be more masculine. So I grew a beard to cover my weak chin. I took steroids. I got a job bouncing a bar so I would get into fights. I carved scars into my chest so I'd look like Rambo. And any of that, guys who want to look more like guys in America, nobody has a problem with that. You want to hang plastic testicles from the back of your pickup truck? No problem. women, if you want to get bigger fake boobs, if you want to dress, super sexy to look more ladyish, we're all for that. It's just when the drag goes contrary to our birth sex that we freak out.
No, but Rick, along those same lines, and we know we were running out of time, and I had one other quick question I wanted to get to based on the movie I saw and everything. But, you also see a number of people, and maybe Christina wants to jump in this, that are, after they get the money, then they decide to go do enhancements, whether that's enhancements around the breast area, whether that's enhancements around the lips. Because I told you I watched the special on some of the Playboy centerfolds, and I can tell you that some of them definitely had the lip injections. You could tell plainly that they had done that and everything because they could afford to do it, and maybe they thought it enhanced their beauty. And all along,
well, look at, like, every time there's a party at Mar-a-Lago, look at the women at Mar-a-Lago. They are engaged. They are women doing extreme female drag with the lips, with the boobs, with with the
time out. You guys we're really gonna let it slide that Mark just dropped in and he was watching a Playboy special.
It was literally on A&E. It was literally on A&E, and I literally just stumbled across it.
So I was watching
the article.
I was watching something the other day, and I don't know if we talked about this already on this show, but they were talking about anorexia. And they were saying how now with the whole transgender movement, everybody's so quick to be like, I agree with you, or even if I don't agree, like, I accept it or it's okay. But they're like, if you have a friend or a family member who has anorexia, you're not going to say, that's okay, you're beautiful. You're probably going to tell them, I think you need some mental therapy, you need help because it's not healthy. So without giving too much of my take, I mean, it was something to think about. Because it's what is different about changing your body. Like, in a sense, it's mutilation. So in another sense, like with anorexia, that's what they were talking about. Like, you're going to be there for that individual because you care about them. And you're going to say it's not the healthiest thing to do to starve yourself because you have some type of mental, like, body dysmorphia. So, I mean, I kind of agree with the same thing when it comes to transgenderism.
I have to disagree because transgender is gender and sex are completely different. So your psychosis, your mind, your whole being is telling you that you're not male or you're not female.
But what's different about that when anorexia is telling you that you're fat?
I was getting to that.
Okay.
So anorexia is an unhealthy thing. Anorexia, you're telling your body that your mind, that whatever you eat, you end up puking up. That is unhealthy in terms of you will die from puking too much. That is a health risk.
But there's also a lot of people who go through with these surgeries and they turn around and regret it. And they say,
dystopia happens working in a job. Transgenderism, the problem where a lot of individuals that are in transgender is because we as a society are making laws against them. We as a society are telling them that they are filth. They are dirty. They are horrible individuals.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
As a society,
I'm talking about the fact that it's causing a lot of health issues for
because of the fact we are telling those individuals that they are horrible. So why don't we
direct them first?
Anorexia is literally a health risk. It is not the same thing. That's like saying
it's a risk after you get these surgeries that you can't go back on.
Transgenderism. Suicide, the reason they have the highest suicide rate is not the fact that because a transgender individual becomes the opposite gender and then decides, I forget. That is not a real
You're missing the point. What about the health risks that develop post-surgery?
That's the same health risk.
I just want to mention the people. Hold on.
You got to wrap up.
Hold on. Because we're running out of time. I want to mention the people
that situation.
Let me mention the people who are physically intersex. There are probably 1 person in 500 is born with the physical characteristics of both genders. There's a hugely famous Hollywood star who has been rumored for her whole career to be biologically male with testosterone insensitivity syndrome, that your body just doesn't react to testosterone. So even though you're biologically male, you look female. There are physical issues with some people where they aren't one gender, one sex or the other. And we've learned that it's bad at birth to pick a sex for them because that might not be the sex they prefer. So not everybody is one sex or the other.
Yeah, you've got the psychology is there. They've done the studies, they've done the work behind the psychology on that. Comparing it to anorexia, bulimia, and other eating disorders, or even throwing in other things, it's not the same thing. I understand that you're talking about, oh, well, body changes. Well, your body is changing because you're malnourished and you're actually harming your body. You're literally harming yourself. In the transgender situation, you're actually making yourself who you are on the inside, which is something that we should accept. It's the same.
You feel like you're in the wrong body in both situations.
That happens in every situation. Michael Jackson had dystopia about his body. Therefore, he bleached his skin.
I don't believe in that either. He should have went to therapy.
That is a different thing than saying, hey, it's the same thing as you trying to kill yourself. But
no, I said it's all a form of body dysmorphia, and it is.
It is not. It is not.
Okay, on the next call, please bring me your studies, and I will
bring me yours.
Personally, be glad to
bring me yours.
Well, we'll have a conversation more about this later on and everything. We're going to wrap up this particular edition. It was another lively conversation. Glad Brandon was able to join us from Bali, and hopefully he'll make a return trip and all along those lines. He's done a report. I did not get to the other issues. Maybe I'll bring it up on Economics Monday, but it was quite interesting watching the show about the union and the union with Amazon, because apparently that was where the union was at. So I don't know that Elon Musk is a big fan of the union. So maybe I'll ask David and all of that on the Economics Show and all in that space. But right now we're getting ready to get on out of here. Maybe we'll have that conversation around the unions on the Tomorrow's World edition. But right now it's time to get on out of here, and hope everybody has a great day, and maybe you'll find a way to see the eclipse as well. But right now we're getting ready to get out of here, and some folks may be staying tuned for Economics Monday and Media Monday coming up at 12 o'clock.